Brown County Commission meeting to order. Commissioner Kipley, lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have somebody from the auditor's office here?
I made her go grab something for me, so that's my bad.
Guess we'll wait for the first item on the agenda. We have the first reading of ordinance 137 to Hanson rezone, going from agriculture preservation district to mini ag.
Alright, the notice, application has been made by Jeff Hansen to the Brown County Board of Commissioners for a change of zoning. Hearing to be held in the Commission Chambers, Courthouse Annex, Brown County, South Dakota, June 18, 2019, at 8:45. For the purpose of rezoning the following properties from Chapter 4.06 Agricultural Preservation District to Chapter 4.07 Mini Agriculture District. Lot 2, Bruns Hanson Addition, in the southwest of Section 42, 12762 of the 5th PM, Brown County, South Dakota, 39546 112th Street. The public is invited to attend the hearing and to present comments and testimony regarding the amendment to second revision Brown County ordinances pertaining to rezoning the described property. At the conclusion of the hearing, the Brown County Commission may adopt first reading of ordinance number 137.
I'll move it. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve the first reading of ordinance 139, Hanson rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Baxter.
Oh, you want mine too, let's find it.
You can keep it if you promise you won't lose it.
Better give it back.
Yeah. Or I'll dig into the pile.
And
When I
I'm
find it, I'll give it to you.
a pledge for your minutes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I meant to wait.
That's okay.
A couple minutes before the next one, Sarah, you want to just do a couple of your items?
Sure.
I think that's right there, I'm pretty sure that's the
Yes,
one.
that's the one. Okay. The general meeting minutes from June 11th.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Piker, second by Weiss, to approve the general meeting minutes from June 11th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve claims. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
HR report.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve the HR report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Fair contracts.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Piker, to approve the fair contracts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Richmond Lake Association lottery permit.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Piker, to approve the Richmond Lake lottery permit. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The Maine Sheriff's report.
Move them.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Sutton, to approve the sheriff's report for the May 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Meal reimbursement rate.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Piker, to approve the meal reimbursement rates to adjust to the new South Dakota rates, the state rates, I should say.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's July 1.
I think so.
JDC cooperative agreement with Aberdeen School District.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Weiss, to approve the JDC cooperative agreement with the Aberdeen School District. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The Brown County Speedway fireworks permit.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to authorize the fireworks permit for the Brown County Speedway. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Township bonds.
Move. Second.
Moved by Piker, second by Sutton, to approve the township bonds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The special malt beverage permit.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, seconded by Piker, to approve the special malt beverage permit. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Watertown Human Services, the Mark A. Glenn Aberdeen and Aberdeen Downtown Association leases.
What was the one with the human?
Watertown Human Services.
Why is there no fee? Do you know, or did Kurt?
Well, there's a $100 fee, but
That's the deposit. I thought we had to lease, I don't know what they were doing, I guess.
Was it pretty quick here? Is it, I mean, do we want to ask Kurt?
Coming up in July,
Yeah.
I believe. Middle of July, July 18th, something like that.
downtown,
No, Richmond Lake.
Watertown.
The youth camp, is that what it is?
There it is.
Is that the one they were coming in and leaving on the same day?
It's 2 days, isn't it? The
2
30th
days
and leaving August
commencing
1st.
on July 30th at 8 a.m., ending August 1st, 12 o'clock. So was your question earlier that it's less than what we usually charge? Or?
Well, the $100 just the deposit, the way it looked to me, it's not like
Oh,
a fee.
so we're giving it, since we have a month, maybe we could put it off and ask Kurt?
Yeah, I don't know 100% sure as far as...
Watertown
Is it the
Community
youth camp that they're leasing?
The
Yeah.
Richmond Youth Camp, yeah.
Yeah, so they have Kurt has the rates, you know, if they rent the lodge, it's so much per day. I don't think he put the rates on that lease,
So that,
just the deposit amount in the days.
but they will still get billed?
Oh, yeah.
Normally there's something,
That's just the security deposit receipt, the way it looked,
Yep,
minus the taxes or whatever.
$94.34 credit.
That's the taxes and the deposit broken out.
You wouldn't think you'd have to pay sales tax on a security deposit when you're gonna refund it, but I could be wrong.
Well, why don't we approve the other two and wait 1 week
Wait on
on
that
that?
one?
Okay.
There's a question on it. I would move the two and defer the other one, or don't take action.
Second.
Moved by Kepley, second by Sutton, to approve the leases except for the Watertown Human Services until we have a little more information. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I guess we'll go on to our next agenda item. We have Glenda Goins, Department of Legislative Audits, opening conference for 2018 financial audit.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Are we free to?
Yeah.
We reserved them for you.
Thank you. Well, you got some new faces here this year. My name is Glenda Bones, and my area is usually the Watertown area. But as you know, Dave is retired, and so we have hired a new employee, Larissa, and she is taking his position in the Aberdeen area. But that leaves me up here to help with training. And so Larissa is going to become your new Dave at some point.
Welcome.
She'll be Larissa.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, so this is basically to establish our engagement process for your compliance and fiscal audit for calendar year 2018. There is going to, you didn't expend enough federal grant money to qualify for a uniform guidance audit for federal grants, so there will not be that. So basically, it's the normal engagement that, you know, and I don't know how much Dave has gone through this letter, but basically the engagement letter describes the process of what we are here to do as far as the compliance and financial audit. The audit objectives, and I'm just going to take some excerpts right from this letter, just to let you know kind of what the guidelines are for the engagement. The audit objective of an audit is to express an opinion on the financial statements. We will be looking at internal controls, but of course this isn't, auditing standards require us to look at your internal controls, but we don't ever express an opinion on those. But if we find ineffective internal controls or lack in internal controls, we will report that to you. Another objective would be that if we are unable to give an unmodified opinion on your financial statements as we're performing the audit, we would come back in and let you know that. Then there are, you as the management of the county also have responsibilities. You're responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the basic financial statements and all accompanying information, as well as all representations contained within them. You're responsible for establishing and maintaining effective internal controls, including internal controls over compliance, and for evaluating and monitoring ongoing activities to help ensure that appropriate goals and objectives are met, and there is reasonable assurance that the government programs are administered in compliance with compliance requirements. You're responsible for making all financial records and related information available to us, for ensuring that management is reliable and financial information is reliable and properly recorded. So that means you're allowing us access to all information of which we are aware that is relevant to the preparation of the financial statements. Additional information that may be requested by us to perform the audit under auditing standards. And then unrestricted access to persons within the government that for whom we determine it's necessary to gather the audit evidence. Your responsibilities also include identifying significant vendor relationships in which the vendor has responsibility for program compliance and for accuracy and completeness of the information. You're responsible for the design and implementation of programs and controls to prevent, deter, or detect fraud, and for informing us about all known or suspected fraud or illegal acts affecting the government involving management, employees, and others where the fraud or illegal acts could have a material effect on the financial statements. And that'll lead me to, that basically comes out of Statement of Auditing Standard 99, which requires us to do interviews of employees. And I guess it's been my practice that I always interview somebody from the board. I always interview somebody from the auditor's office every audit and somebody from the treasurer's office, and then I kind of pick other, depending upon maybe what outlying offices I do, I will pick other employees from other departments to perform these fraud inquiries. But that, like I said, auditing standards requires us to perform these interviews, and so I'm just letting you know that I will be performing interviews on different employees within the county. Let me see. You are also responsible for establishing and maintaining a process for tracking the status of audit findings and recommendations. Then there's audit procedures in general. And of course, an audit includes examining on a test basis evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. Audits are not, we don't test 100% of your transactions. So there are inherent limitations in that. So because of these inherent limitations, combined with the inherent limitations of internal controls, and because we will not perform a detailed examination of all transactions, there is a risk that material misstatements or non-compliance may exist and not be detected by us, even though the audit is properly planned and performed in accordance with auditing standards. That is an inherent risk in any audit, that because we don't test 100% of your transactions, you know, there are things that can fall through. We're hoping through the way we plan and perform the audit that doesn't happen, and in my experience, you know, we tend to find stuff smaller than material fraud or misstatements to the financial statements, not even necessarily fraud, but just misstatements to the financial statements. So I feel like based on following auditing standards, you know, we do tend to find what's required by auditing standards, I guess. But like I said, still want you to keep in mind that there is still that inherent risk that we might miss something. Our procedures will include tests of documentary evidence supporting the transactions recorded in the accounts, and may include tests of physical existence of inventory, direct confirmation, and certain other assets and liabilities by correspondence with selected individuals, funding sources, creditors, financial institutions. What that's kind of considering is we confirm your cash balances with the bank every audit. Audit procedures.
There's two.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there you go, that's fine. I had that issue yesterday, I couldn't stop. I mean, it was more than two, let me tell you. Audit procedures, internal controls. Our audit will include obtaining an understanding of the entity and its environment, including internal controls. sufficient to assess the risk of material misstatements to the financial statements, and to design the nature, timing, and extent of further audit procedures. An audit is not designed to provide assurance on the effectiveness of internal controls or to identify all significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. We will test some compliance, because of course counties are very statutorily driven, so we do test your compliance with laws, regulation, contracts, and grants agreements. Not all of them, but I mean we do, with what we're doing, we do test compliance. Audit administration, as far as a time budget for the audit, I kind of took what you were billed for the last couple of years and tried to go from there, because of course with not being your auditor in charge ever, I wasn't sure how to budget this audit, and I know that we will be looking into your payroll a little bit, just based on some of the difficulties that there has been with the payroll. So anyway, I budgeted approximately 400 hours, and that was based off of, it appears like you were billed for calendar year 17, 415 hours, and for calendar year 16, 373 hours. So I kind of took the average of that. I got to 394, and I just rounded up to 400, thinking about the issues with, you know, maybe not sure what I'm going to encounter in the payroll testing. The billable rate for fiscal year 19 is $68.50. That's fiscal year 19. That'll change again come July 1st. But I don't know what that change will be. And as far as, I've already determined and what outlying offices we need to look at or need to review. You had 3 material outlying offices, and it was the landfill, fair, and the 24/7 program. And so based on having no problems in the testing of internal controls over the landfill or 24/7, the last time they audited, which was calendar year 2017, we will review those. If we find problems with internal controls, we will have to test them, because technically if we find problems with internal controls, we have to test all material outlying offices. The fair, there were still, based on what I read, it looks like there was quite a bit of improvement the last time Dave tested it last year, but because there was still some issues unresolved, we will have to test the internal controls and probably do more detailed testing over the fair than we would maybe necessarily the landfill that's 24/7, based on not having the deficiencies in the landfill or 24/7 testing we did last time. And then we do rotate the non-material outlying offices to, you know, so that they have some exposure at least every 3 audit cycles. And so the immaterial outlying offices that we're going to look at are the jail, the sheriff, and the sheriff got looked at last time, but we're going to look at him again this time because of some inconsistencies or improper fees being charged as they found in the last audit. So we're going to do the jail, the sheriff, the director of equalization, the register of deeds, and the auditor and extension offices. So those will be the immaterial offices that we're going to review this time. So with that said, are there any specific areas that you guys want us to look into, or does that sound fine?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good to me.
I guess, do you have any questions for me on this process?
When do you plan on starting the audit?
We have started.
Okay.
I came on June 10th. I think Dave was here with Larissa for a few days before that, before I could get here, before he retired, which was June 8th. But technically I would consider the start date being June 10th. And we're anticipating, I don't know, I'm anticipating to be done by the end of August. And that's something, because we're training, we could be here longer than that, but training hours will be tracked and you will not be billed for any training hours. We write all that off to training. So you will just be, and you will not be billed if we give assistance. We're allowed to give assistance. So if we consider ourselves giving assistance rather than working on an audit, you're not billed for that. So you're basically just billed for the time we feel that we've spent on audit procedures.
And then we would offer to be the training site every year, if that's possible.
That's really not the option.
Don't think we're gonna get that much.
Just wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, well, you know, I think everybody would like that. So I guess if you have no questions for me on this process, I guess basically I've just taken excerpts from this engagement letter, and so I would need a motion to sign this engagement letter. And this is the same engagement letter that you've been probably signing for years. A motion to accept the engagement and to sign the engagement letter.
Question. Does the county have to audit every year, or is it every 2 years?
It is every 2 years. It is a requirement, but I think Brown County has been an annual audit. But yeah, I think it can be a 2-year audit.
Right.
Yes.
And is the cities, municipalities under code, state code, they're not required to do the same extensive audit?
Oh yeah, they are. They
They
are.
are.
If they have revenue of $600,000 or greater, they're required to have an audit at least every 2 years.
So, and the state goes in?
No, the state does not audit them. It was before my time back. They reduced our audit staff, so we didn't have enough audit staff to cover all of the audits that needed to be required to be done. And so counties are still required to have Department of Legislative Audit do their audits. Schools and cities still are required to still have the same audit requirement, but they can have independent accountants come and do their audits and have to schedule those. I know that those are getting to be fewer and far between, and so I do audit one city. They request us to have done, so I do audit one city in my area that, from what I've heard out there, you know, in the area that I am in, is if it was possible to have our department do the audits, they would have us do the audit. But we just don't have enough. We don't have enough staff.
And then the rate charged, is that set in code also?
That is set in code.
Yeah.
Yep, that is set.
And there's not a variation according to the...
I'm not sure how it's set, but I know eventually it becomes part of code that that is the rate for whatever fiscal year we're in, and that usually changes after July 1st, and it comes down to, I suppose, some type of calculations on the prior year, or prior 3. I guess I'm not sure what the process is, but I know it's reset every July 1st. Sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't, but.
Thank you.
Yes.
Maybe if we ever get to a point where we have absolutely no dings, we could look at every 2 years, but at this point we haven't got there.
No, I have no problem with every year auditing. I think it's...
I actually had one of my counties, actually two of them wanted to go to annual audits, and the one, because they asked first, got to go to an annual audit, and the other one, because they didn't know if the same DLA auditor could come to their audit every year, they decided to stick with 2 years. But I would have had 2 of my counties that would have went to yearly audits had they, and when one did, but the other one didn't, because they couldn't, we couldn't guarantee that they get, because of scheduling all the county audits, couldn't guarantee them that the same auditor would get to come every year. So, no,
I think every year audit is perfectly fine. I have no problem whatsoever.
Right, I mean, I'm just giving you some sidelights from my area, I guess, which might not be the same as yours, but some of them might be thinking the same thing, but anyway.
I would move we sign it.
I'll second it.
I have a motion, Kipley, second from Piker, to authorize the chair to sign the engagement letter. Is that what we call it?
Yes, yes.
For the audit? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for the overview.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep. And I will meet with you again at the end of the audit. Probably won't meet with you guys until the management review process goes through, but after my manager reviews the audit, then I will come back to do a final closing conference with you at that point in time. There's the back page.
That's another cart to
Yeah.
follow it up here.
All right,
So you need
great.
just one?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's okay.
We're gonna go back to our lease agreement. We've seen Kurt sitting there, and we don't wanna hold him up. So-
I'll teach you to come wander by,
I
right?
know. No, we were just curious about the Watertown Human Service Agency. They have a $100 deposit. How is the fee set on that, Kurt? Because there isn't anything in here about a fee.
Okay, actually, what we do, there's two different fee schedules. There's a group schedule for payment, and then there's a flat fee. Now, let's do the flat fees first. That would be for like a wedding out at the youth camp. They pay so much per building, per day. So the lodge would be $150, and a dorm would be $60 per day for flat fees. Now, what we do is we have them do that deposit, and then when they get done with their camp, they pay whatever's left, instead of having them pay the full thing up front and then having to give them the $100 back, because the deposits are refundable. So it's a lot easier for book work for us if they just come in, and if they book the lodge, they just come in and pay the $50 then, instead of paying $150 and then giving them their $100 back, or however it works. The other pay schedule is a group schedule, and that's usually for our church groups that have 100 kids or more out there. And what they do is, you don't know how many kids are actually going to show up for camp, so they don't know exactly how much to pay. So as soon as the camp is completed, they count up how many kids they have, how many adults they have, and it's $5 per kid per day, and it's $7 per adult per day, and then they just pay that fee at the end. So that's how it works. And so Watertown would be a group one, where they're counting up how many, and it will be an adult. Watertown is an adult camp, because they have disabled adults coming out for that one from their human resource. So once they get done, they'll just count up how many they have. They usually have like 20 people out there, and then they'll pay us according to our schedule.
It just came up because it wasn't noted on the
Yeah,
contract, and so we're kind of looking to see was it waived or what's...
No. If it's waived, I will put it in there under, right away that the fee would be waived.
So then on the deposit, there's a sales tax in charge, but that's actually like their payment, because you're not going to refund that, so you're billing the sales tax onto that then. That was one of the
Correct.
questions that,
Correct.
why is there sales tax on a deposit? Well, actually, that's actually part of their payment, so
It
they're
is.
not going to get it back.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's kind of a down payment or an advance payment, and then it'll...
It's a holding fee is what it is, to hold that date for them.
Okay.
I don't remember who did the second, but I would, if we can, amend to add it in.
I did.
You good with that?
Yeah,
Anybody have a
absolutely.
problem? Okay, so we'll let Sarah know to just add that one into the motion.
Question clarified.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Kurt.
You too.
Next item, we have the Resolution 22-19, Planning and Zoning Joint Resolution for County adapting a 3-mile zoning jurisdiction.
Just like me.
Lease agreement to include that.
Okay.
After we get that. So you just have to change that.
I need to read it. I need to read it.
I don't think you need to file.
I guess I sent out copies of this earlier. This was a fix, I guess, for the interim time between now and when the county accepts jurisdiction, or takes jurisdiction, I guess, in that 3-mile area for planning and zoning. There's a joint resolution with the city that basically cross-deputizes or authorizes and ratifies the actions of both planning and zoning departments to be effective for the other side, even if projects would be completed past the date the city plans to turn over jurisdiction. So I don't know if there are any questions about it, but it's pretty basic.
I attended the city meeting last night, and there were no questions there. It sailed through pretty easily.
This is basically just to simplify the process for the public in the meantime while we work through some of the details.
Correct.
And that wherever they go, we'll try and take care of them, honor each other's.
Have we haven't really, how do I say it, probably each individual of us have heard from some of the public, and more so probably from the people in the 3-mile limit. But I'm just curious as to how, overall, how the public is accepting this whole thing or perceiving this whole thing. I mean, where are we at in this whole thing? To me, I'm not sure that, I just question whether the city commissioners or city council members have a total grasp of what's taking place here as far as the city's, or the county's desire to actually have a joint jurisdiction where both the city and the county sat down, and then all of a sudden we're, in a matter of about a month, 6 weeks time, here we are in the middle of a situation where, is that where the city people really want us to be? I mean, I guess I'm not sure that we're headed in the right direction in this whole thing, and don't know where to go with it as we are.
Well, we can only control what we can control. And I mean, the city's gonna do what they want to do, and I think we've made it noted. I mean, I know I have each time it's been brought up that our preference was joint jurisdiction, but they're making the decision they wanna make, and I told them we'll do our best to step up. And it's definitely a fix over where we're currently at with folks outside not having any voice that they feel. So I guess, we know what our preference is joint, but if they want to relinquish, I guess we'll step up to the plate and do the best we can to work with it.
City Attorney Wager did make reference to that the county's preference was to have a joint jurisdictional situation in the 3-mile, but based on recommendations from their planning and zoning staff, they just felt it's best to relinquish it all to the county so that it's clear to the public who they go to for whatever it is they're looking for, permitting or replatting or whatever. And they thought it would simplify the process and make everything more clear. I did sit next to a couple they actually lived kitty corner across the mile line from that proposed event center. And they were extremely happy that this was happening because they feel the county has a much better notification process, and they felt, had it been under the county back when that was proposed, that the surrounding property owners would have been notified under our plan, and they weren't under the city's, current ordinances. So they were excited for it to happen, and they think it's going to increase communication and make things more transparent and more public from the get-go, especially on a situation like that.
Is there a specific point or process where at some point the city can request or, how would I put it, get back into the, there is
It can go up to 6 miles, I believe.
Yep. And Ron did make reference to that also, that if just because these ordinances passed by both entities, if in the future they feel the need to step back in and take over jurisdiction, that they could do that. They're given that, right, they're given that authority by the codified law, up to 6 miles, correct.
And then the county has no input.
We would be joint.
It would be joint.
They can't force us out.
If we...
Right.
That's my main question right there. That the county then would still have input.
Right.
Where does the public go now?
Either place. That's what this resolution is going to do in the interim, so that there's less confusion, so folks can go either place for their building permits. And I would move that resolution.
Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Weiss. I think the biggest thing that's probably going to be is the extra expense for the county for planning and zoning. It's going to be huge because you're taking on a big burden that we weren't staffed for before, so it's going to change our staffing ability. The other question I may have is, one of the things was about, are we adopting the city ordinances, which we were trying to appease the people that were 2.5 miles out by some of the restrictions. I think it's going to get confusing once we start down that road, when those ordinances have to be adapted to change the current ordinances. I mean, we're not doing this to follow the city's ordinances, because that's the whole intent of why the county's be involved for the people out 2.5 miles. They don't like the ordinance that's followed within the 1 mile. So I think it's gonna be confusing as this thing takes off, and as it gets down to making those changes, it's gonna be difficult. It won't be an easy task, and it will be a stress on our planning and zoning office. That's my thoughts on it, but we have a motion by Kipley, we have a second by Weiss to adopt the ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Oops.
I guess I was just thinking maybe you should ask if there's any public input before we vote.
Okay.
That's just my thought.
Okay. Apologize. Any public input as far as what we talked about?
I just thought that, I'm Carl Perry, and a citizen, and the reason that I was concerned a little bit is I just want to make sure that the city and the county are communicating, because what's really important is the people that are in that 3 mile area, and if we're doing the right thing for them. As long as we're doing the right thing for them, I think it's really a good idea. If we're not doing the right thing for them, then I think we need to think about it. And I don't live in the 3 mile area, but I would be concerned about those people because I want to make sure that they're taken care of. So.
So anyway, back to, we have a motion by Kipley, a second by Weiss to approve the ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah.
All the fun to get.
Yeah, right.
Next item, we have Rachel to discuss the JDAI diversion coordination position.
I just wanted to give everybody an update. Last Thursday, went to hearing and presented to the Council of Juvenile Services on that grant that we were working on. We were partially successful. We did get awarded $61,919 for the portion of the grant where we requested a JDAI coordinator, diversion coordinator. That was the bigger portion of the grant. It's a 1-year position with a possible, if we put in again, we could get 2 additional years for that person if we're approved. That person will serve under the state's attorney's office, and they will work to coordinate. You might have heard me talk about that community stakeholder group that we have in town. It includes the schools, Northeastern Mental Health, it's got the United Way, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club. There's just a great array of folks that deal with youth in Aberdeen, and the whole purpose is to kind of take a look at how we're treating those kids and where we're putting them and placing them court-wise and what we can do better. The part that was denied was, you might remember, we tried to get a 50-50 split so we could reserve a bed over a New Beginning Center for 1 year just to see how that would affect our numbers. For 2018, if you look at the RAE data, only 13 youth scored for secure detention, yet we had to detain 136 kids in our JDC. Number of reasons for that. It could be abuse in the home, it could be that we couldn't send them anywhere else, but the biggest thing is we just don't have alternatives here in Aberdeen, and that was one thought we had. Well, if we could get 1 bed secured to kind of see what that does to our numbers down the road, but unfortunately the council did not approve that 50-50 cost share. However, we did get a little caveat, because normally you can get reimbursement. If you don't have a shelter care bed in your county, you can get reimbursed $100 a day for 7 days, I believe it is. But we have a shelter care, even though it's never available, so we were never eligible for that money. They are waiving that caveat, the fact that we had one, because we told them, hey, it's just never available. When it is, we use it. So for the next year, if we can call there each time and there happens to be an availability, they will reimburse us for that bed if we can use it. And then I spoke to the sheriff's office, and they're going to track every time a kid would qualify for a shelter care bed versus JDC in order to see how many times we use it. And so it's something that we could apply for maybe next year if we decide it's something that we want to do.
Quantified.
Yeah. And the whole purpose is, make sure that we're using the JDC for the kids that we're actually scared of, not the kids that annoy us. Because down the road we realize that when those kids are put, you got your misdemeanors with your hardened felons, it's not going to be good for anybody. And so we're hoping by instituting some of these things in the future, maybe the jail numbers will go down as these kids grow up and we put them in better environments. So, any questions? Carly, did I miss anything? Thanks for all your help on this.
So the grant money will take care of the salary for 1 year for the
salary, yep, salary and benefits, and we added to the HR if there was no issues. We're going to advertise it as $39,000 to $41,000 plus benefits, and it'll probably be somebody with like a counseling, social work kind of background. And then we'll have to just let them know it's a 1-year position with possibility of 2 additional on top of that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending, Dan.
Next item on the agenda, we have Ryan Smith, Riverside Cemetery, discuss Riverside plots. Ryan here.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Morning. Thank you for your time. It's kind of probably an unusual request that you don't hear very often, I guess, or maybe have ever heard before. So I'm kind of here on the behalf of the family of Judith Ingebretson. She passed away here last week. Her family is trying to fulfill her request of being buried on the same space as her sister, Joanne Taylor, who is in Block 90, Lot 30, Space B, which the county holds burial rights to. So I guess I would need your permission to go ahead and inter her cremains within that same space there. Again, to fulfill those wishes, I guess. The family would pay the fees associated with that. They're not asking for the fees, but I would need your permission to go ahead and do so.
I'm fairly new to this. When you say the county, you need the county's permission. Help me out.
How many spots does the county have out there?
The county currently has 558 spaces at the cemetery, of which 517 are occupied. We have 528 total occupants, so that means there are multiple burials in very few cemetery spaces. Approximately 11 probably have 2 burials within those spaces. This is a common thing, I guess, in my world where the deceased is cremated and wishes to be buried on the same space as parents, sisters, some other relative. Normally this is handled within kind of the family. The family would sign a burial permission form to do so, being as the county holds the burial rights to the spaces, I guess. I'm hoping this is the appropriate forum to...
So maybe I missed something. How many available spots are there now?
There are 41 available spaces.
41 available.
Minimally. That is if our records are completely correct. That number would not go down, but it could go up slightly.
Okay, that's where I was.
Yeah, so...
41 would be available, and we would be approving the use of 1.
We would be approving the use of 1 that already is occupied. Her sister was buried in that space in 2000. She was a full burial, and within our spaces we can accommodate a full burial and then 3 cremations on top. If you look at it kind of as a double depth grave space, that's how our grave spaces work. So with your approval, we would inter her cremated remains on top of her sister.
So it's become a pretty common practice anymore.
It is going to be a common practice. I don't know. I may be sitting before you again here multiple times asking for this question. If this is the appropriate forum and if this is the appropriate procedure moving forward, I may be sitting here a number of times in the future. Our cremation rates are exploding rapidly.
So my question is, if it's owned by someone else, what's the approval process? Or basically you have your own standards and
we have
can approve that?
What I have here, and I can pass it around, it's a burial permission form that the city requires that the family sign off on. So I would have to imagine that if you guys would sign off on that, just the same as a family would, I would believe that would be appropriate to move forward with the term. So,
well, my intent is to move the approval, but then also ask that if Carly would explore the possibility of drafting something that we could adopt that would make this more an administrative decision, so it wouldn't be necessary for them to come to us each time, because it's more and more common practice, and unless it falls outside the lines of their normal procedures that you need some sort of an exception, I would think that we could put an approval together to allow this to happen.
And it sounds like we're not taking an additional spot, because it's one that's
it
already...
is no additional space needed.
No other relatives or anything that might...
There is, I spoke with her sister-in-law in Sioux Falls, is who I've been dealing with. They've been working with Miller Funeral Home in Sioux Falls. This would be, I think, the only other burial that would occur on that space. Again, it's, it may be something we might deal with other families in the future, but
Like I said, I'm aware that it's become a fairly common practice.
Absolutely. This last year was the first year that we finished with more cremation interments than regular full burials.
So what are you proposing as far as the process, that he would go
We'll
through
approve this request.
Yeah, but he'd go through the auditor's office then, rather than coming to the commission?
Wouldn't have to go to the auditor's office at all. He would have approval for the spots that the county has control over through their normal process,
But-
without having to schedule and appear and hold it up and all the rest of those things.
But would an application still?
Yeah, they'd document it,
So they'd
yes.
have to come to the auditor's office then in order to be signed?
Well, I imagine just to get the signature, we'd throw it on the consent calendar
Yeah.
instead of the
Instead of having a
Yeah.
hearing, yeah. To speed up the
Sounds
It comes through much like one of our leases or
Right.
something like that.
So whatever the state's attorney determines is the appropriate process to simplify it, so it's not necessary to
That
make
kind of help
it.
carry, kind of, Carly.
I'll have to look into it.
Something new.
We have a motion from Weiss to authorize the plot to be used.
Yeah, burial permission to be used.
I'll second it.
Second by Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks,
You
Ryan.
guess that I don't know if I leave this with you folks to
Yeah.
sign or,
Yeah.
okay?
But leave your contact information with Carly, and
Okay.
she'll work with you on
Use that
hopefully
for
closing
ours.
Okay, well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
Thanks a lot.
Ryan.
Have a great
See if we
day.
can simplify this for you in the future.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Oh, the city finance office.
Good morning, Dirk.
Howdy. How are you guys? Good. Not too bad.
Morning, Dirk. You're up next for
You're late.
discussing auction.
I've been out pacing around for the last half hour.
Hey, it's only 15 minutes.
Okay, sorry.
It'll get worse.
What do I got up there? Which funding agreement? Okay, the first thing I want to do is this will be the second time we've done an extension on the LIIP grant agreement from the Governor's Office of Economic Development for the swimming plant. Thought we were going to get her done by June 30th, and the weather pushed us back, and then we got in the way of the 281 project coming through, so it'll probably be done by the 30th, but I didn't know if I have all the paper chased around and everything, so I just asked that we get another extension. Everybody's fine with it. So they've already approved the extension, but I need you guys to sign and bless this document. All it is just saying that we're pushing the extension back. I think it's to September or something.
Motion to approve the extension.
Second.
Motion by Weiss, second by Piker to authorize the extension.
Yep.
Everything's 3 to 6 weeks late this year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The other thing is kind of fun, actually. I don't know if you were paying attention here in the last 6 months or so. There's a report that came out about, that we're constantly talking about how bad bridges are nationwide, and I mean, that's not news to anybody, but they actually quantified it, and I even have handouts. Wow. So,
It must be something you're excited about.
well, it's money.
And 22.5% of the backlog is in Brown County.
So the federal government took the bridge reports at the end of 2017, and any bridge that was classified as being in poor condition, they took the square foot area of those bridges. I'll tell you what, I need one. I have no idea how many I have. And you can read on there and calculate it out. So South Dakota, as the entire state, we got a little over $20.8 million. And then they took that money, laundered it into state money, so it doesn't have the federal regulations on it. And they took the state money and then repeated the process. So everybody that had a bridge in poor condition on that date then took that and prorated it out based on how many square feet of bridge deck you have on your poor bridge. So that's how we got here. So as you can see there, the state being the DOT, had 16.7% of bad,
Deficiencies.
yep, and, as you can see there, when 1.25 million square feet of bad bridges are on the county system. So you go through another prorating and so on and so forth, and we ended up with, I think it's $443,000. I got an agreement here that's got it in there. $443,540.76. It's entirely new money. Never had it
Say it again.
before. $443,540.76.
And that's what we got out of the 17 million?
Yep, that's what our cut was.
The rest goes to the other counties and whatever.
Right.
County, cities,
Yep. Now, I've ignored if there's any curse words on this list. I might have used an adjective on there to describe a bridge that I didn't like, but this list here, prior to me scribbling on it, is the list of the 14 bridges that we have that are in poor condition and that we can use that money on. So we can't just take the money and do whatever the hell we want with it. It has to be used on those 14 bridges.
Do they use the same criteria on this money as they do on the big program?
No.
So all counties will qualify whether they have a wheel tax or not?
Correct. Everybody will qualify. This is a lot more similar to how our federal highway dollars are dispersed, where it's all proportion, except there, it's population and miles of road.
Okay.
But it's all prorated. This is just about square feet of bridge deck is how they did it. I don't know if these are gonna be anything.
I take it your starred ones are the ones we're doing this year?
Okay, so this list, you can see on the right, all the way to the right, I've got no written on some of them. Prior to getting this, those are bridges that were, based on what my plan is, those were just gonna go until someday we closed them. They were never anything we were gonna use federal bridge money on. We may put pipe in them and stuff like that, okay? So anything with no, and I'm not saying that means that I can't be talked out of, I'm just saying, prior to me getting this money showing up, that was the plan. I wasn't gonna do anything with those bridges. Now, the ones with the asterisk, Sand Lake, that's planned for next year. Hull Pit is in our current year's budget. Sand Lake is in the budget that I'm submitting, that I was just submitted. It's in for next year. I'm not using this money, though, to make up the 20 budget, is what I'm saying. That money's still just sitting over here. I had my 20 budget pretty much done, and then it showed up on Friday. So those are two that are on this list, but I've already kind of got the funding program for them, provided we still continue to fund the highway department, I guess. That Hecla Bridge, you know, that says, no, that's an old one that's just north of Hecla. It's in the middle of a slough. There's a bad little truss in there. Number 57 east of Warner, the third one that's asterisk, that is in this year's budget. You go down there a little further, the next asterisk one, that's number 81, that's east of Schleich Feedlot. That's down there in that area I've talked with you guys about before, because we've closed everything else in the area. And it's, if you just drove down to that bridge on its own accord and weren't aware of what else was going around in the area, you kind of be going, I don't know if this is a good value. But when you take into consideration that it's like 6 miles to get around, it's one that we need to kind of consider. And then the last one I have asterisk is in the 2020 budget already. So the ones that are left, there's a few on there that I apparently didn't get down to the bottom of the list, because 352 is the West Bridge at Richmond that we've been waiting on. We got our, by the way, side note, that's all cleared and ready to go, so we'll be doing that in August. We got all our permitting and historical clearance done. Number 211 is northeast of Frederick. That's going to be a big bridge in 2020. I've got that one in for next year as well. 331 we won't do, and 206 Elm Lake Bridge, that's the following year. That's like in 2021. So, you know, I guess my comment that I have about this money is I want it to be a benefit to the bridge program. I don't want to, my budget that I submitted request is like 9.4 million. You know, I don't want you guys to say, okay, your budget's 9 million, use that other 400,000 and pay for the Hull Pit Bridge this year, or pay for the Sand Lake Bridge next year. I also understand your challenges, and there's nothing that keeps you from you know, leaving it in reserves and transferring less money into the highway department. But I really hope that we can use this as actually a little extra something, you know, to
Well, I
do
kind
things
of think
with.
it looks to me like that was the intent of the whole program in the first place, that it was extra money to come in to help the counties and cities and the state to move forward. Yeah,
Yeah, and if somebody were to catch wind that we're transferring money and filtering in, I mean, that just looks bad. It's not right. And I think if people catch wind of it, state government, federal government, that'll be the end of the program, helping you. If you're just substituting in new money
I'm
for
sure
money
there's
you're
some
already
counties that
gonna.
want to do that too.
Well, I already know that happens with the federal highway money. I mean, I know some places budgets didn't change one bit, and they just, you know, put in less property tax. That's the thing that's a little snaky for us. So we start out at the beginning of the year, and we got our federal highway money we're going to do this with, and we have things like that, say this bridge money we're going to do things with, and then all of a sudden your receipts aren't what you're expecting for what your cash flow is, and you can't transfer $800,000 into the highway department at the end of the year. And then it's like, well, we just used our federal highway money to build reserves or for property tax relief. And I understand I've been sitting around here long enough, I know what our challenges are. I mean, I get it. You can see how crabby you guys are at budget time. It's terrible. But so I mean, I understand that, but I really hope that we can.
If you had your way, where would you like to designate this money? Where would your thoughts be?
What I would like to do with it, I would like you guys to approve my 9-4 budget as is, and then put it into next year's and use it to pay for the Sand Lake Bridge for the match, and then have my actual budget or spending authority be 9.8. You know, I don't want you know what I mean? I'll just be blunt. I just don't want it to go away.
But Sand Lake, you've got that budget of 2020, that's already budgeted, right?
Correct. See, I spent the weekend trying to figure out how to protect this money, and I don't want to sound that, but I mean, that's what I was trying to do and figure that out, because I understand the reality of it, and you come down to December, and if there's not enough cash to cover stuff, you know.
And you say Sand Lake Bridge, you're talking about on 16?
Yep. Yeah, it's I mean, this one at Hall, by the way, they started on the Hall Bridge Monday. You know, that's, our match on that's $1 million. And I'm guessing the Sand Lake is gonna be an identical bridge almost, so we would be looking at another $1 million in match. In a perfect world, I'd use this 443, and I'd also grab the federal highway money and put them together, and we'd end up with about $880,000, and I would use that to pay towards $1 million match on the Sand Lake Bridge. But if you...
So what you're getting at is you'd like to keep your budget whole.
Right.
And the nice thing about this unexpected allocation is it doesn't have a bunch of supplanting restrictions and things like that. You have the flexibility. It needs to be used towards bridge projects, many of which we have programmed.
Yep.
But it gives you the flexibility, knowing that things are dynamic, that you can accelerate some of the bridge projects that we need to get done. You're just giving us a report on what the current status of...
Right. You know, they're all...
list is.
I think that's a good point.
I like it.
So what I'm hearing is we all just back of the mind 443, but forget about it for the most part. Set it aside.
It's there.
And-
Well,
And you make plans for that.
And it'll go into a
Hopefully we can
bridge.
do our job, shave a little off the other budgets so we can make yours whole.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I mean, I didn't intend to, we won't go too much into the budget discussion, but it's hard not to when we're talking about where we would apply these monies, you know. My submission for this year is $100,000 less than 17, it's $185,000 less than 18, and it's $8,000 less than my current budget. So I'm not escalating things. We're trying to find some places to build some efficiencies into it and at least stave off things a little bit. So that's, you know, we are being conservative. It's not the old holy cow, here's a coal mine, and
well, it's a nice problem to have as you know, go through the thought process of realigning your priorities based on, okay, we have more resources than we anticipated. So how do you make that fit? Do you do a project, or you try and do part of a project, and is this one actually going to get done, the funding done this year? So it's a constant juggling act, but it's a wonderful problem to have with people.
The other reason why I would like to use it on that particular bridge is it's way cleaner on the accounting end of it. If we split it up and use it to build a couple little bridges, and we do it like, say we do with our Holloway, with our local model of building bridges, then there's a little more of a burden on us for the accounting part of it. If we use it as bridge match, it's like, okay, here's the $443,000, put it on our bridge match, and there's no accounting.
It's one project, and it's all right there.
So anyway, that's that. We don't have to make that specific decision. You guys know what my feelings are, and so I would just like to recommend that we sign the agreement and send it back to them, and
We'll move it. Moved by Lee, second by Piker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And Jim River went down an inch, and so did the Crow, and the Crow's still an inch higher than the Jim, so we're at least going in the right direction. Not real fast, but it's at least going in the right direction.
I got a question for you.
Dang it, can we get out of here?
Why are those stop signs in the middle of the Prairiewood Road, the bypass, and on, what is it, 8th Avenue?
Yep.
There's a stop sign and a post right in the middle of the intersection.
Yep.
Is that a federal requirement? Why?
Yep.
It is.
Let me ask you this, and I'm not being a smartass. Where would you put it?
Great big arm hanging up over the top.
Well, the thing that I've heard is the guys coming by with the trains, the stop sign's out so far, it's like it should be back about 10, 15 yards further back, because when they come around, the sign's out so far, but I suppose there's a requirement where it's gotta be replaced.
Yep.
And I looked at it, that's what I told the guy, I said, I'm sure it's a federal law.
That's what I figured too, but
Line standards.
I would think that there'd be a safety hazard there if a little car or a motorcycle would hit that cut somebody's head off. It just don't look to me like somebody run that stop sign.
By using that system for mounting the sign, we are covered for any liability because it's been crash tested, and as long as we install it properly and it's there, and, I mean, everything has to be crash tested.
So who,
It's a breakaway.
who pays to have it replaced? Is it state, is the federal government
No.
bringing in money to help keep replacing it when it gets knocked off?
No, we go do it.
And the flip side of that is if somebody misses it because that sign's not there and blows through the sign and causes a crash.
Yep. No, that's,
Wow.
I mean, we can look at, there's alternatives, okay? About $60,000, we can redesign the intersection, and that's an option. I wouldn't be against it. If you wanna go to a stoplight, or to hang something over the top, but again, even, you know, you can't just go out and build a tree fort and hang a sign from it. I gotta get an engineer to sign off on the structural and all that, so, I mean, it's...
Am I the only one that's complained?
No.
No.
Same
You're the only
answer
one
we've
that's
got.
complained since about 9:30.
But now you know why, and you can spread the word.
Yeah.
Funny enough...
That's what I've been telling people that have questioned me about it.
And that's
It's
the
a federal
deal.
requirement.
You know, and what amazes me
Safety.
about the general public is they honestly, people call up and think that we would go out there and go, where's the worst, let's just put this here so we can screw with people a little bit, you know? And another comment, not one county guy has complained to me about them signs, not one. We just drive out there and they go nice and slow, and you can make the
Technically,
corner.
when you come up to an intersection like that, regardless of what you're driving, you're supposed to be able to pass through that intersection without crossing that area.
Yep.
So if you can't do that,
Need a little more education.
So, I'm not saying it's not
no problem.
a little different,
A little
but-
goofy, yeah.
Yeah, so, I would've just assumed we did, slip lanes. I would've liked to have just left it straight and then had like an exit that turned on there, but then you get into a whole bunch of merge issues with people coming down, so. But yep, that's why, and I'm open, anybody wants to have something other than just tell me I'm an idiot, I'd be happy to come up
So
with
who's
it.
what's the process of determination as to whether, in other words, if it isn't there, does the federal government, how do they inspect that or know that it's there for future grant monies or any of those kinds of things? I mean, what's the penalty if it's not there? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the penalty will be tied to whatever accident or whatever happens. Like, if we just decided we were gonna go out and remove it and just live with that one that's
And
on
not
the
comply
inside
with what the federal
and
requirement.
paint a stop bar out there,
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, We had, I spent 3 hours in a deposition at an intersection on a township road that we had all of our signs back. We didn't have anything wrong, and it was a heck of a challenge trying to get us out of the lawsuit. So unfortunately, that stuff, you're kind of reactive. We try to mitigate what we can, but the thing that's going to hang us up way quicker than the federal government is an accident and a lawsuit. Matter of fact, the federal government we will never hear from them again on that particular sign. It's in a book. You just pull up a book, and this is the scenario, and this is your width, and that's where the stop sign goes.
But it's good to have the conversation, because these things continually evolve. You know, in that area, it reminds me 20 years ago when we shut down truck traffic going east of there.
Well, there was
And they had to go to the state
Yeah.
highway, and the DOT did that very extensive analysis, and there was no justification at that time with the traffic that was there to put that light up
Right.
that they put at that intersection. Now that's changed over the last 20 years.
Isn't there also, like the delineators on the curves, like at the curve up on Richmond Road North where it straightens out? That's federal requirement too, is that correct?
Yeah,
There's all
every
standards for that.
every single sign you see is a federal requirement. I should be careful there. Every traffic sign you see, I mean, it's a book. It's online. You just pull up the book, and this is the sign, and this is the speed limit, and that's how big it is, and that's where it goes. And there is no deviation. There's no alternatives. There's no nothing. This is where it goes. You know, our route markers, say Brown County 13,
Yeah.
they're out of compliance. They have been for 100 years. But the liability of having the wrong route marker up
Is less.
is like nothing.
Yeah.
But they should be, the Pentagon is what's recommended, so that they're the same.
Well, the sign man at the highway shop sure ain't running out of work, that's for sure.
We can continue. I'd say we put roundabouts in both of them.
That'll work.
Is that a motion?
That's a recommendation.
And 6 and 12 going west.
There's 4 locations I would put them if we
You have
were-
a good
if
day
we were
there.
gonna-
Yeah, you think they're having trouble with the stop sign?
What
Thank you.
What's
Thank
his
you.
name on that plaque?
There, and then just a couple other things.
Cut that off in a hurry, didn't it?
We have much more
Yeah,
important
silence,
issues.
right?
Yep, claim assignments to CCB.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Pfeiffer, second by Kipley, to authorize claim assignments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Auditor's report of accounts.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Pfeiffer, approve the auditor's report of accounts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Gary, do you have anything?
Just a couple things, just wanted to let you know, I was told that the mill and appraisal should be here by the end of the week, hopefully, and tonight's the rezone application at the City Planning Commission, I'll attend that to represent.
Very good.
Anything else to come before the commission?
I wonder if we don't need a quick exec for contracts?
And personnel?
I would entertain a motion to go into exec for personnel and contracts.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Kipley, go into exec for personnel and contracts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are out of exec. No action as a result.
Tomorrow is Sue's retirement party at 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
Yep.
Anything else to come before the Brown County Commission?
I just had a quick question. Gary, you've been in conversation with the fire marshal, and you shared this map with us and stuff.
Correct.
I'm just curious about what kind of feedback you got on kind of the islands of non-jurisdiction you got from that. I'm just
Yeah, you
curious.
know, those are all the county parcels, as I mentioned in memo, that haven't been annexed into the city, so supposedly if there was somebody that wanted to do fireworks in that area, then obviously it wouldn't, they'd ask the county to do the approval. My main concern was the conversation about like Lou's and some of those that are outside the city limit that aren't in that jurisdiction, they've been like flip-flopping back and forth, and they keep saying that they're gonna take care of those fireworks stands, but yet they're not on the, they're not in the jurisdiction, so I'm not sure And that's just part of this confusion of this whole 3 mile
Well, it does
thing,
include,
so.
according to this map, the fairgrounds, which are not annexed.
He's right, and they
That's why,
always have.
that was the confusing part to me.
And they always have, that one is added in, and that's why I put in my memo, I said, is it because it's a public event that they added that in? That it's always been part of the jurisdiction, but yet those other county parcels aren't, so.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
it
kinda
no
odd.
rhyme or reason to that.
Yeah, there is. So that's what I was just asking for clarification on, but they keep saying they're gonna cover the fireworks stands and the fairgrounds, and then the rest would be ours, so.
I'll
So the
just
city-
continue to point out that we're
Yeah.
a little puzzled about, you know, the practical application and then, you know, the
Exactly.
map supposedly covering the jurisdictions. So
Right.
we need to clarify that going forward.
Sounds
Sorry,
good.
yeah.
Maybe you just need to check with dispatch and say, okay, if there's a fire at location A,
Where you go.
who will you send? Aberdeen Rural or
And we
Aberdeen
can
City?
certainly do that too.
So I'm okay, but they need to be, you know, within their own comfort level about what their responsibilities are and so forth.
Right.
Having them.
Because that was the same thing that Kathy brought up too, is like, well, you know, we want to get a map showing specifically what area is covered and what area is not, and yet we keep getting these
You know, and
convoluted
I appreciate
answers.
that, you know, there was an event last month at the fairgrounds that included pyrotechnics and, you know, and new to the position and stuff, but, you know, he was there and, you know, monitoring how things were being handled, making sure that there was appropriate egress in case of
Right.
any situation and stuff, and I'm perfectly happy with it. I'm fine with it. I thought it was great, but, you know, just clarifying for consistency going forward, what things are included or not.
Yeah,
So-
again, it just seemed easier when the former marshal just did the other 3 too. I mean, we're not talking a lot of permits here, so, but.
But it is a
that's
commitment
their
on time,
choice.
time
Yeah.
and so forth, and so,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
not to be critical, but just to clarify going forward for some consistency.
I agree.
So continue to work on that. Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Weiss to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.